I just got to San Ordo, the race site. You see the overcast? That's not from smoke, thank goodness. That's from fog. I'm not in the valley any longer. And it's cool here, really cool, so I'm not going to have to worry about heat. I'm hoping this is going to be a good day. Good ride, guys.
Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis the Cycling Greek, and I have a doozy for you on this one. For most of this COVID limited season, I had been focusing on the race 2 weeks ago. Since I wasn't able to go to nationals, I used this race as a replacement because it had somewhat of a similar feel to the course at nationals, and I got third in it. So I was in pretty good form coming into this race, into this championship race that was established later on in the season. If you've been watching my videos, you know that I have a harder time with riding on flats than I do at climbs. And this race is mostly flats. In fact, let's take a look at it now. We are passing the bridge as we are approaching the turnoff to the finish. After that comes the biggest step of the race, and it's about a quarter mile long, so the rest of the steps are obviously not that big, except for one that's almost that big at the other end of the section of minor steps that you see on the left-hand side of the corner. Then you see the ugly bridge, and that'll be coming up later on in the race. And then on the other end of the course is flat, mostly flat, with headwinds. And those headwinds are pretty big, especially when you're tired. And you get to hear more about that later on too. Our peloton numbered 13. That included 3 from the 70-74 group. And they were picked separately, so that meant 10 for the rest of us. In our group included my buddy Brian. Brian, you may recall in a previous video, crashed out in a race and then we took him to the hospital, and so you got to see that. And if you didn't see that, go back and take a look at it. It's pretty entertaining. That is, of course, unless you were Brian. A couple other major players in this group are 2 people whom I was watching. In fact, everyone was watching them. It's a 2-man team from Clean Power Racing presented by Tesla. Paul Gossi, a former age group national criterium champion, and a new buddy of mine, and my buddy Frank Winters, current age group mountain bike national champion, and placed 4th in a very tough national road race championship. Coming into this race, I had a good warm-up yesterday, and my warm-up today was typical of a road race warm-up where I'm not doing a lot of high-intensity pickups. I figure this is going to be happening during the race, and with these 65 plus races, they start off pretty slow, and often they're pretty slow during the entire race until you get to some crunch time that's happening. Well, that is the total opposite of how this race went. So far, Frank has been leading from the start, and he's been slowly ramping everything up. As we approach the feed zone hill, the right in front of me starts to fail a bit, so then I get right on Frank's wheel. Now, Frank likes to do a lot of time trials. And later on I learned from my other buddy Bob Gorman, who's also in this race, that Frank has an FTP of around 400 watts. Mine's only 275, so you can see where the trouble is going to happen. And Frank likes to do flat stuff, and as you know, I'm not that great at flat stuff. I wish I had power showing in the graphics in the upper left-hand corner. I'm not, because I'm using my fancy schmancy carbon wheels, and they don't have a power meter on them. No, I don't have power pedals. I have power tap wheels, and I got those from a long time ago, and they're still good, so I'm still using them. I don't have to buy anything else. Because as you know, if you've been watching my videos, I'm pretty cheap. So now we're on the flats. Every once in a while, Frank looks back to see what's going on. I'm on his wheel, and I just got to stay on his wheel. But I know what's going to be happening. I'm having a hard time. I'm trying to get to that left turn, to the right turn, excuse me, that you may see way in the corner, because that's where the climb starts. When I get on that climb, then I'll have a little easier time. I just have to be able to get on that climb. And right now, it is pretty tough. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. I figure if I pull off, then everybody's behind me and they're just going to go, and then my race is going to be over, within a mile of starting it. Little did I know from a rear camera insert in the upper right hand corner that Tim Davis from Team Taroon is the only person on my wheel. There's a big gap to everyone else. What's happening now is similar to what happened in my race 2 weeks ago. On the main climb, I was with the main climber, a really good climber, Rex, and he pulled me away from the rest of the group. And if I could survive with him to the top, then I would have a very good placing. Now, in this case, if I can survive with Frank going over to the climb, then I'll have a chance to survive and then, hopefully have a good placing at the end of the race. During this next off season, I have got to work on my time trialing. I'm so on the edge right now, and right now I just pulled myself off because, that's it. So I'm expecting everybody to just jump on by, and they're not. What may be happening here is the fear that I had is that Frank will just be off on his own and just time trial the rest of the race by himself, and then he'll take the championship. Now on the screen, it looks like I could just jump on their wheel and just hang on and then get over that climb and I'll be fine. But I'm still on the edge. I have not had a chance to recover. And as you're seeing that now we're getting to the climb and I'm still not recovered and these guys are jumping. So now I got to do what I can to get up to them. I'm hoping they group up, they slow up, and that'll give me a chance to get on. Right now I'm in no man's land. You have a group in front of me and then you have a group in back of me that you see in the upper right hand corner. And that group in back of me, well, I know that now since I'm working on the video, but I never turned around to take a look and take stock. Jumping forward 1.5 miles, I've been joined by 3 others and we've been hoofing it, trying to catch these guys. And at this point, it seemed they were close enough. I take a left turn and I started jumping and I don't know what's going on behind me, but it looks like that I may be able to catch up to these guys. These guys are still going pretty hard. We were going pretty hard. And I'm having trouble making the connection. I hope I will. 1/2 kilometer later, I got this close and I just couldn't close the deal. I had to back off. 4 miles later, after I was rejoined by the others, we finally made the connection. Pretty much all that time, while I was able to think because of the hypoxia, I was thinking that I didn't want my race to end this soon, like this. When we get up there, I see that a rider has slipped off the front, and that is a 70-plus rider. And so the balance of the 65s that are in the group, we're not interested in chasing him. There may be another 70 that's left in our group here, but I'm not sure. So the fact that a 70-plus has slipped off from this group gives me hope for my future. Texting with my buddy Bob while I'm making this video, that guy was never caught. I have definitely got to work on my time trialing during the off season. I say that every year. Let's see if this time I actually do it. Now, all this consternation that we went through in this first 8.5 miles of this 2-lap, 48-mile race is not the end of it. In fact, it was just the beginning. Remember those 2 Clean Power racing teammates? Well, Frank starts off with an attack. And from my perspective, when I cut up these guys, this is the first of many that's going to be happening. My ability to jump and maintain that power is not where I want it to be, but it's a lot better than what it was. I therefore use a lot of wheels to be able to survive. Now, in this case, I'm getting myself back up there to give myself a little bit of a buffer. So this is the second biggest step of the race. And by being up in the front, again, I give myself a little bit of buffer and no one's really going to be attacking on the climb. Well, I shouldn't say that because you still get that. But with me being up there and with me being a better climber than a flatland racer, I'll be able to more easily survive that. We get to the ugly bridge at the far end of the course, and this is where we start, where somebody in the front starts putting an attack, and everyone is now in consternation. What makes this bridge so ugly is the road surface. It is so bad, it is dangerous in some sections when you're going fast. And of course, people want to go fast so they can get a gap and put the hurt on some others. As you can tell from the video, you're bouncing up as much as you're going forward, it seems like. With today's video kind of having elements of real-time action, I just got another text from my good buddy Bob. He was saying that during the second lap, the moto came up and told everybody that the 70-year-old was still out in front. Okay, now I'm definitely going to be working on my time trialing during the off-season. Jumping forward a bit, we are at the far end of the course, and we're about to make that right turn to come back to the start area. Frank has put in an attack, unbeknownst to me because I'm on the left side of the course. He went on the right side. And now people are starting to jump after him. They don't want him to get over to the right turn without them. So I'm at this point just following wheels, and my buddy Bob is now jumping over to him. I can still use some recovery time from all the happenings from the first part of the race, and I'm still on strong wheels, so I am just keeping myself in this position. We get into that turn, and I'm just settling in now behind wheels. Actually, what's happening is that Paul has countered, and he's attacking, and he just goes for a bit, but that does have a cost on the rest of us, and especially me, with trying to jump on and make sure I'm still connected. Jumping forward to 1.5 miles later, we are doing a little better than just crawling along. Now, one of the riders just pulls off, and then Paul kind of sneaks his way to the front and then puts in an attack, the next attack. I am on Frank's wheel, so that gives me the ability to ride his wheel, and Frank is a big guy, so that means I have a lot of wind protection. And the wind is not as heavy now as it's going to be in the second lap, but it is there. Still, due to the strength differentials, that doesn't mean I'm going to be on his wheel the entire time. Fortunately for me, Paul sees that the riders that are with him at the moment are not willing to pull through, that they're just covering him. And so that works to my advantage. And then immediately Frank counterattacks. Fortunately, I was close enough to his wheel where I don't have to do a lot of digging. I have somebody go in front of me just so I can get onto their wheel, because I'm just not as strong as Frank to do that big jump. Basically, I'm using what's available to me in order to survive. Right now, I'm looking for Paul to do a counterattack, and I'm sure everyone else is too. But fortunately, he doesn't. Just a little while later, you can look at the rear camera insert and see a wry little smile on Frank's face as he attacks. And this is a good one. So Tim's jumping. I'm trying to jump on Tim, but again, these guys have bigger jump than I do. So now I'm just digging in just to try to connect. More people go by. I try to grab onto their wheel. I am hoping that there is a let up, and there may not be a let up, but I'm hoping there's a let up so then I can reconnect. And fortunately, there is. Now, it may not be ending here because there's Paul waiting in the wings. He can easily counterattack. I'm looking back to see if he is counterattacking, but nothing is happening yet. I'm on these wheels, and I'm so glad to be there right now. Less than a half lap later, you can see from the rear camera that Paul is putting in another attack. He actually feigns an attack to get everybody to go and then to let up, and then he attacks again. I am now in not that great a position. There's a gap to those. Frank, fortunately, is not up with Paul in their attack. Otherwise, this would be even worse for me. But I'm able to hang on, and I just keep at it. And fortunately, I do have that wheel. He's looking back, and so that's not a good sign for me because I'm thinking he's going to let up. But he keeps going, and we eventually make it up to the others. Now, there's somebody you can see in the rear view camera that's off the back a bit. And there is another counterattack happening from Frank this time. And that just isn't good news for the guy in back of us right now. And it looks like even further back, I think that is Bob Montague. Jumping ahead, it's been 2 kilometers since our last attack. Paul Gossi is behind me in the rearview camera. Paul Gossi thinks it's time for an attack. So off he goes. And we do this all over again. So I am now just riding wheels as best I can as I'm jumping up to these guys. I figure since we have over a lap to go that Paul and Frank are just trying to thin the field, whether for both of themselves or for one of them to go off with 1 or 2 other riders. What is interesting as I'm putting this video together is that there's now a big gap between us and the people in back of us. And the people in back of us are being pulled up by teammates to the person who's doing the attacking, Frank. Now you may be thinking, Frank, why are you pulling these guys up to your teammate? Well, the answer is Tim Davis. Tim is in the group with myself and with Paul, and Tim is a very strong sprinter. So they still need that 2-to-1 advantage to be able to deal with Tim. So that is actually an advantage for me for when I need it. For when one of those teammates attacks, I can rely when I need to on the other teammate to get me back up there. Being one of the weaker riders in the group, I figure they'll let me sneak off the front for a little bit, and then who knows what'll happen after that. So I slowly roll off the front, and then I see what happens. Well, they're kind of watching, and Frank is actually watching me, so he's getting on my wheel. And so since he's getting on my wheel, the rest of them are getting on Frank's wheel, not because of me, but because of Frank. So later on, Frank comes up to me and says, you know, you should try that again. and then I won't come after you. Because as you can see, he's kind of letting up right now, but Tim's not going to have any of that. So I keep our conversation in mind for later on. Jumping ahead for the last few miles, Frank has been pulling. He finally pulls off, and most everybody pulls off with him. Tim was right behind his wheel, and I was on Tim's wheel. All of a sudden, Paul puts in another attack, and Tim is right on his wheel. Even though these constant attacks are chewing on my legs little by little, I've yet to feel a significant degradation. So I'm still good. This time I'm using Bob's wheel for help to get back up to Paul and to Tim. As we are all regrouping, look what Frank does in my rearview camera. He bides his time, sees an opening on the right side, sneaks up, and then he counterattacks. Remember those two riders that were off the back a bit and they just had reconnected? Fortunately, they were able to regroup. Now, I'm not so panicked right now because I see Paul right in front of me. As long as I'm with Paul and Tim is up there with Frank, Paul's going to ensure that he stays connected so the advantage doesn't go to Tim. It's now about a half a mile later. Remember that conversation I had with Frank? I easily roll off to the front. I stretch my back to the left. I stretch my back to the right. Frank is holding off Paul, and then I start to roll off a little more evenly and strongly. So this may appear to be working right now, but Tim, who probably doesn't know that I'm not as strong as he thinks I am, is getting onto my wheel just in case. Well, that was a good try. I've now jumped forward to the point where we are approaching the feed zone. As soon as I did my little sneak away try, Frank had gone to the front and was pulling us. And he was pulling us a little stronger with each pedal stroke. So he was remembering what was happening in the first lap, where I was on his wheel and then I wasn't able to hang on with him eventually, and that caused a gap that other people had to fill. I knew that's what he was doing, and there was nothing I could do about it except hang on for as long as I can. So now we're approaching the feed zone hill, but I've been on his wheel and we've been doing this for quite a few miles, and it's it's hurting me a bit. And so again, the question is, am I going to be able to survive to get to that big step at the far end, so then I can climb a little easier with these guys? As you can see, Tim is again on my wheel and the pack is stretched out. Bob is just about on Tim's wheel, but there's some gaps going off. Actually, there's a gap going off to Paul back there. Now I die out, and Paul goes by me. No way I can get on his wheel. I look behind me. There's a big gap. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to keep going as long as I can. I hope these guys let up, but unless they do, then I'm doing this last lap by myself. Well, the other Bob Montague, is getting up to me. I don't know that. I figure I'm alone. So we're on a 1% grade, so I just keep pushing it. Now, they're not making any more distance up, or at least it looks like they're not making any more distance up. So I'm keeping at it. Unfortunately, my it is quite diminished. Now, Bob has gotten out to me, and so he's starting to go to the front, and I need a little bit of a wheel just so I can get some rest. Halfway up the step, they're farther away from us, and there's really nobody behind us except the moto. So the situation is 4 in the lead, 2 chasing, a bunch chasing us. 5 miles later, Bob yells out to me, "Do you want to go for 5th place, or do you want to chase after these guys?" In a meek yet whiny voice, I respond, "But I've been chasing these guys." So the official decision we made is to chase these guys. For the next 5 miles we chased. We chased through the balance of the steps. We chased through the ugly bridge. We made it around the right turn onto the east side of the course, which is mostly flat, and now we are approaching the only bump on that course. At this point, we pretty much recognize that we're not going to catch those guys, and that we don't want to be caught by anybody behind us. So what's available to us is the last spot on the podium. Now, Bob is better on the flatland and a much better sprinter than I am. I am a better climber than Bob. So my only chance is to be able to get away from Bob on the feed zone hill. And if I do, have enough distance where I can get to the finish line before he can catch me. So this bump is kind of a test for me. It's not that I'm going to try to get away from him, because my legs are hurting pretty bad right now, as are Bob's. So I go and I start to stand to sort of give myself a test on how I'm going to feel. Well, the test didn't turn out so well. I stood for a while, and then I had to sit back down because this really sucked. My legs are starting to hurt bad. In fact, later on in the race, it got to the point where I was on Bob's wheel and I just wanted to stop pedaling because my legs couldn't take it anymore. Now, I know Bob was hurting bad too, because not only he was telling me he was hurting bad, his pulls were sucking as much as mine were. And now the wind had picked up, so things were even worse. And all the while, both of us are thinking about, geez, is there anybody in back of us that's going to catch us? So rather than just show you a video of us just totally sucking, trying to pull on the flats, I'm going to jump over to that feed zone hill. I have been pulling for the last 3+ miles, if you can call it pulling. I want to get that last place on the podium. I've been getting on podiums lately since we've been having 65+ races, and I like it. So now I put in an attack, and I don't know what's happening behind me. Of course, all the time I'm thinking that he's just right on my wheel. I'm not looking behind me. I'm just going as hard as I can go. You know, pain in my legs be damned. So here now is where inexperience comes and bites me in the butt. Now I do look behind me and I can't see him, but I'm not looking over on the other side of me to see if he's there, and I'm thinking he's there. So all this time I'm just zoned in thinking that he's just going to catch me any moment, and that's all I'm thinking about. So I continue to go as hard as I can. I'm no longer standing, but I'm spinning hard. I look around again. He's not over on that one side, and of course I don't look on the other side. And all of a sudden I see that left turn. I hear a voice behind me and it says, "No, you're going to LA." It's one of those hear things but don't register it. I look up and I'm not seeing the finish line. And now my brain starts to think. In the rearview mirror, you can see a little dark speck going across from right to left, and that is Bob. Finally, reality rears its ugly head, and I turn around, and now I am chasing, and I'm chasing hard. Again, leg pain be damned. This is almost a life flashing before your eyes kind of thing. So I'm going hard. I see people that I know there, and they know what I did, and I know they know what I did, and I go around that corner, and then I just start to stomp it. I could see Bob up in the distance, so I'm going hard, but as it turns out, he's a lot closer to the line than I am. He gets that podium spot, I get the t-shirt.
Well, that was stupid. Man, that was a tough race. It was a tough race, and you see that. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this, and you were entertained by it. And you got something out of it. Don't make a wrong turn. All right, comment, like, subscribe. And remember, comment, like, subscribe. All three of those. The Cycling Greek. No, not yet, not yet. Okay, so how did it go? How did it go?
Me?
Oh, no, yeah, the finish.
Okay, so 4 of us came through the town, and Frank Winters pulled most of the way because he had a teammate, so there were 2 guys.
Right.
And Tim Davis attacked really hard through the feed zone hill and put a gap on Frank. And then the other guy, Paul Gossi, pulled away from us, and then Frank and I went to the line, and I couldn't get past him. Frank was right there, and he was just powered right through.
Oh, so you got what place?
4th.
4th, okay.
So it was Tim Davis, Paul Gossi, former national champion, Frank Winters, and me.
Okay.
And
then Bob and me.
Frank pulled most of the way because they had two strong teammates.
Yes.
And Tim didn't want to. Tim just went along for the ride. But we, I didn't think they'd want to pull Tim to the line because Tim's such a good sprinter.
Right.
That I thought they'd try some better shenanigans, but they couldn't isolate him. They tried a few attacks.
Yeah.
Frank said to me, "How many attacks can you withstand?" I said, "Not many more." You go, "Maybe one more?" I said, maybe one more.
Well, apparently I can't stand his wheel when he's putting it down. Well, that was tough. Both times.
His FTP's like almost 400, right?
Oh, jeez. Mine's like 275.